Hello there, fellow coders. I'm Adam, and this is Gosu Coders. Today we're going to be talking about the phone interview and how to stand out amongst the crowd when you hang up that phone. Let's get started. Phone interviews really are your opportunity to stand out amongst the competition. Everyone is vying for that same position, and you really need to make an impression on that interviewer. Take the opportunity at the end of the interview, when they ask you if you have any questions of your own, to ask some questions that have some meaning behind them. So I'm going to go into some detail about some questions that I've been asked. One that I've been asked that you should avoid at all costs is, does your company allow you to wear shorts or a hat or flip-flops? Like, that is so unimportant. And if you'd have done your research ahead of time on Glassdoor or any of the other sites that you can look for information on company culture, you would know the answer to that. That shows a lack of initiative, and that shows what your true values actually are. You should be thinking about how you can provide value to that company, and in return, how that company can provide value to you. So, another bad question to ask at the early phases of an interview, now this would be like before the on-site, is things such as, well, how much vacation do you give? That just shows that again, you haven't done your research. Though that information is usually readily available on company sites like Glassdoor. But also, at that point in the interview phase, that shouldn't even matter. That becomes negotiable at the end. You can work through all of the details of that once you get that offer in hand. Another question along those same lines is, what kind of 401k matching policy do you have? Again, early on, that is not a right question to ask. You need to be asking questions at the early stage that really show that you've put thought and research into this interview ahead of time. So let's jump into some good questions, and then I'm going to detail why those are good questions. So on the whiteboard here behind me, maybe hard to read, but the first question that I really like is, you look up something online, something big that has happened around that company. I've used the example of a big round of funding, maybe a big investment. Maybe this is a startup that you're applying for. So you mentioned the article. Hey, I read an article that, your company won an award, or I read an article that you received a big round of funding, or that you won a new contract or new client. And then, with this, can you give me an idea of what the big picture is for the company? What is the plan for the company 5 years from now? Where do you see the company going? What's the overall direction that the company is heading? The answer to that should be offices are being opened in other parts of the world. Maybe the company's planning on going public. Maybe the company's planning to go from public to private. Maybe they can't relay a lot of that information, but you'll get some really cool information just by asking a question like that. Another question I really like, specific to the interviewer, hopefully you did your research ahead of time. If not, hopefully you've had that conversation or asked them how long they've been at the company and you've picked it up. I do recommend doing your research ahead of time, even on the people that are interviewing you. But you bring that up again. So, in your 2 years here that you've been with this company, can you tell me what the most fun jobs are that you've got to work on? Maybe the most fun days that you've had. And if you're really connecting with the interviewer, you can even say, like, what was the hardest job that you've had? What was the hardest thing that you've done at this company and that you had to overcome? Really awesome conversations there. Allows you to connect and be able to understand what that person is going through on a day-to-day and really understand the meat of the role that you're applying for, because the person that's interviewing you is either a peer or it's a manager of some kind. So it will give you some insight into the day-to-day. Technology. Pick a technology question that you really are interested in. One that I always like to ask is, you've mentioned your technology stack, but I'm really interested in how a programmer is assigned tasks, or is the programming team, is the Scrum team, self-guided, and are they pulling in tasks themselves? So I love questions that kind of pry around that, and this one that I use a lot. Can you tell me how tasks and stories are made and the process they take to get it done? That is so different in every company that this question alone should give you some insight on what your day-to-day is going to be like. And it allows you to make a great decision on whether or not you want to work for that company and what their true values are for the product that they're building. But on the flip side, from the interviewer's perspective, it makes you realize that this candidate is very serious about the position. They care about the big picture. They're looking at things that other candidates probably aren't thinking about, and they're going to stand out. And I know as a person that has done probably hundreds of phone interviews, I write that stuff down. I add it onto their candidate record when they ask me awesome questions like that, because to me that means a lot. It means they've done their research. They're more than likely going to be a great fit for coming on site and going to the next phase of the interview. All right, so bottom line, don't waste the time you have at the interview to ask questions that mean nothing. Definitely don't ask questions that make it seem like you don't care about the position of the job. Keep it job focused, keep it business focused. Don't ask questions like, can I wear shorts or flip-flops? Very bad idea. Technical question, something about the interviewer, something about the company. Those are the three categories that I really like to hit. And I would recommend that you go in prepared with multiple versions of each of these, because depending on how the conversation goes, they may give you the answer to this, and asking at the end won't make sense. So you need to go in planned, maybe 2 or 3 of these, 2 or 3 of these, 2 or 3 of these. And then you make a game time decision on which one you ask. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. If you have any interview questions that you'd like to use, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And I can also give you feedback on them, on how I would actually feel if a candidate asked me that. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for today. Hopefully this has been helpful, and check back tomorrow for another video on programming tips, new technologies, interview tips, anything that I can think of that's programming or technology based. I'm going to start sharing with you guys. I hope this has been helpful, and if you have anything that you'd like to share with me, I will read every comment below. All right, thank you guys, and have a great day. Keep coding.